Welcome to One Finger Banjo. This is going to be the beginning of a series of lessons to go along with a book I made of the same name. At the time I'm making this video, the book is not quite printed yet. It should be soon. I'll get a link down in the description as soon as I can. The book is pretty easy to use. It's a large print. It does not use regular music notation. Instead of using musical notes, there's a little balloon with the stick sticking up on it. You won't find that in this book. I use numbers instead, so it's not necessary to be able to read music to play these songs. Just what style of playing banjo is this? It's not two-finger style, it's not three-finger style, it's one-finger style. I'm promoting this as being the easiest way of playing the banjo. It can be used as a first step to move on to other ways of playing the banjo. But as I say in the book, this playing banjo like this is not going to get you a job in Nashville. Okay, it's based on easy ways of playing instruments like the Appalachian dulcimer, where you only play just one note at a time and let the other strings drone. It's still going to have a good sense of rhythm to it. It'll be a good way to pass the time, and you might even be able to get people to dance to it. Okay, now let's talk about the banjo itself a little bit, just the design of the thing. I mentioned three kinds of banjos in the book that's good enough to get started with. The most common banjo is what's called a resonator banjo. Unlike this banjo, it has a backing on it. You can't see inside the banjo at all. Now this, on the other hand, is an open back banjo. You can see inside the banjo, see the control rod. And I mentioned four-string banjos too. This book should work pretty much for them, but make sure you have the right kind of strings on them. There are different ways that the Irish may tune a four-string banjo. And if you have a four-string banjo, instead of playing the 50 note, I call it, just the open fifth string, the short string, you will have to put your finger down here and on the first string at the fifth fret. You see, they sound the same. That's what you'll have to do if you have a four-string banjo. I'll just talk about the parts of the banjo here that you especially need to know to get through this book. You have to know what a string is, easy enough, and you have to know what a fret is. A fret are these little metal bars that go across the neck. It's important too to know the numbers of these. The first string is the one that's closest to the floor. All right, and it can be confusing here. Some people talk about high strings, and you think, well, this is a low string because it's close to the floor. It's not the geophysical location. All right, it's the pitch of the string that they're talking about. See, the first string is a high string in the sense that it's got a higher pitch than most of the other strings. To avoid that confusion, I'll always try to refer to the strings by number in this book. But okay, there's our first string, and then they go in order across the neck. Second string, third string, the one in the middle, fourth string, and then the short, extra short string is the fifth string. and you have to know the number of the frets. This part right here is called the nut. It just holds the strings in place. You can think of that as 0. And then this right here is the first fret, second fret, third fret, fourth fret, and fifth fret. And in this book, I do not require you to go above the fifth fret. Now there are such critters as fretless banjos. I recommend that to start you use a banjo with frets on it so you can get an idea of where your fingers are supposed to go when you're playing. If you don't have a fretted banjo, it's fine to use a used banjo in this course, or you just don't like fretted banjos. Here's what I recommend you do. On this edge of the banjo, where you can see it, make little chalk marks, or little pieces of tape or something. Put them 1 1/4 inches apart. Make 5 of those, starting at the nut. And that'll give you an idea of where your fingers are supposed to go. Where do they go exactly? They go where you put your finger down and it sounds the best. That's where it is exactly. Let me give you just a couple of little tips too about playing your banjo if you live in an apartment house like I do and you're not allowed to make too much noise. Here's one thing you can do. I've got a rag here and I tucked it in between the control rod and the skin of the banjo, the head we call it, and that dampens the sound quite a bit. Now if you don't have an open back banjo, another way you can do it is I took a shoelace here and I wove it in and out of the strings about 3 times, push it against the bridge. That also helps to make your banjo very quiet. It might throw off the tuning of your frets just a little bit, but it's good enough for practicing. One thing you don't want to do is just tell yourself, well, I'll just play my banjo real quiet. If you practice playing your banjo really quiet, the only way you'll ever be able to play is really quiet. If you've got these mutes on, you can really give your banjo the force that you need to perform in public. Now let's talk about holding your banjo. You've probably seen lots of guitar players, they play like this. The neck is pretty much level with the floor. We can do better with that on a banjo. One thing you never want to do too on a banjo is hold your thumb over the top like you might see guitar players doing. The best place to hold your banjo is tilt the neck up a little bit. How much should you tip it? You just take your thumb, put it right about here, by the 2nd, 3rd fret, put it behind your banjo, and hold your arm up and just wherever it feels the most comfortable. That's where you want to angle your banjo. Now, resonator banjos are the most comfortable to hold. You can put them at a right angle to your body this way. If you've got an open back banjo like this, chances are it's going to poke you in the chest, rub on your ribs. So we tend not just to tilt the neck up, but we also tend to tilt it forward. Where should you put it? Just kind of rest it on your rib cage over here, and where it's the most comfortable, doesn't poke you so much, that's the place to hold it. So always remember to keep that thumb behind the neck. Don't get into this habit. Now there are left-handed banjos out there too. The hands will be reversed on a left-handed banjo. Okay, instead of picking with your right hand, you're going to pick with your left hand. Instead of playing the notes with your left hand, you're going to play the notes with your right hand. But still, the first string will be the closest to the floor. And the strings will have that same order. The short string will still be on the top if you have a left-handed banjo. Now let's talk about getting a good tone out of your banjo. If you're getting some string buzzing, it may be because you're not holding your finger in the right place. To play the notes, you want your finger to be pressing down on the wooden neck, and you want it pressing on the top of that fret, that little metal bar. That gives you a good clear sound. If you put your finger too far back, it's not very loud and it's buzzing a little bit. So get it right up there. Oh, I can show you here too. If you practice every day, and I recommend at least 15 minutes a day if you're using this course, you'll get, if you can see, I've got calluses on the tips of my fingers. See those whitish spots? Yeah, it might hurt a little bit at first. With practice, you'll get those calluses, and you should be okay. If you still have problems, something you can try and do is it maybe your strings are too fat. You've got a heavy gauge string on there. Put lighter gauge strings on there instead. Another thing you can do is try nylon strings. They're even easier on the fingers. If you're like me and it still hurts and maybe you're even breaking out a little bit, you may have an allergy to nickel. Most banjo strings are nickel plated. You can find banjo strings that are just made out of stainless steel. Still contain a little bit of nickel. Or again, just go to the nylon strings. Okay, now let's talk about tuning the banjo. I use more than one tuning in this book. Many banjo players only use the tuning I'm going to show you right now. It's called open G tuning, or also just standard tuning. And these little boxes that show the pitch on them are really nice, but there's a problem with them. They don't tell you what octave you're in. They'll tell you you're playing a G note, but they won't tell you whether it's a high G or a low G or something in between. If you try to tune the string too low, it's going to buzz. If you tune the string an octave too high, well, it'll break before you get that high. So for a beginner, I really recommend you get someone to help you tune your banjo the first few times until you get more used to it. If you don't have that option available to you, well, you can just try and tune up with me here right now. I've got my tuner on here, and I start with the fourth string. When I first started playing banjos, I used tuning forks to help you tune up. But my little box is telling me fourth string should be tuned to D, and it says I'm right on D. Then I go up to the next higher pitch string, the third string. A little bit flat there. Right there, so if you're tuning with me, your first two strings should sound like that. Go to the second string. Box tells me I got it right there. The first string, the one that's closest to the floor, right there. And then the shortest string for last, the fifth string. right there. Again, with the fourth string, third string, second string, first string, and the fifth string. Now, I don't require you to know the names of the notes in this book, but the notation for this tuning is the small G, the short string is the small case letter, and then it goes D, G, B, D. It's not necessarily to really know what the notes are or to find them on a page of music. If you see that notation, D, G, G, D, G, D, D, as I've written down below there, it will just let you know that this is the easiest tuning to use. This is the open G tuning or standard tuning. Now let's talk about finding the notes. In this book, I do not use music notation. I use numbers instead. First of all, let's try and find the note 12. Now, I write the notes as two-digit numbers. The first digit refers to the number of the string. So in the number 12, 1 tells you use string number 1, the first string. The 2 tells you the number of the fret. 1, 2. That's note number 12. If you're playing it right, it should sound just like this. Now let's look at note number 30. Again, the first digit, 3, tells you the number of the string. Third string, it's the one in the middle, as you look down here. Okay, what does the 0 mean? Think of the 0 as an O. It means open. You don't use this hand at all. Just play the open third string. That's the note 30. If you're playing the note 30 right, it should sound just like this. One of the fun things about playing the banjo is if mom's out in the audience, you can keep playing and you can still wave to her. Hey, which finger should you use to play the note with? It only takes one finger. Use the one you're most comfortable with. Use your index finger. Your middle finger tends to stick out the furthest. It's a good choice too, whichever one you want. The same thing on this hand. Use your thumb. Use your index finger. Then you're strumming in the opposite direction as if you use your thumb. Some of the more traditional banjo players like to use a fingernail. So you can get through this whole book just using one finger, as I've just showed you, one finger of each hand. I do have an optional method in there called number coordinated fingers. When you're playing something in the first fret, use your first finger. If you're playing in the second fret, use your second finger. If you're playing in the third fret, use your third finger. If you're playing in the fourth fret, use your fourth finger. Okay, it's not something you have to use, but you may find it useful. I do have instances in this book where you may actually be able to put two fingers down, and then the number coordinated system works better with that. But it's up to you which one you want to use. Especially if you're using a used banjo on this course, fine. If you still have some buzzing with the strings, even though you've done everything I told you to. And you don't have to do everything I tell you in this book, okay? But if you're still having some buzzing problems, it may be because your bridge is sinking in too far and the strings are touching the wooden neck. Uh, your bridge should sink in just about a 1/16 of an inch is all. If it's sinking in too far, tighten up the brackets. Uh, again, if you're new with this business and you don't really know what you're doing, find somebody who knows how to play the banjo, and they'll probably be happy to help you with that. Uh, if you tighten up those brackets to where they're supposed to be and there's still some buzzing, it may be a more serious problem, like your neck is warped. That's something only a professional luthier can fix. If you over tighten those brackets, it can tear your head apart. Might make a big bang noise too. Okay, that should be all the basic things you need to know to get started on this course. Hopefully the rest will go pretty easy for you. Thank you for watching, and remember, having the book will be helpful to get you through these videos.